I mean, this is definitely one way to approach the off-meta combat, to pick the English, when I don't think I've seen many of the highest level players picking English on Dry Arabia. Capoch would, though. This guy is kind of, I don't know, been the biggest English enthusiast in my mind for a long time. I feel like if there's anyone that I would relate English to, like, this is one of the 5 players I'd do it for, right? Like, you think of Mist and Demusum are 2 other obvious ones, but Capoch is most definitely in there. This guy has been playing it from release up till now. You know, they say it's a beginner Civ, but apparently has kept a pro-level player entertained for several months. Even though he does play other Civs, I feel like every time his back's up against the wall or he gets in a competitive environment, this is the first Civ he seeks. And keep in mind that he could keep seeking this Civ throughout the entire series if he chooses, because the way this works in off-meta combat, the top 3 Civs are banned on a given map, and then each player bans their opponent from picking a specific Civ. You can use repeat Civs if they're still in the pool after that. So in theory, funnily enough, actually Capoch's choice of going the English aren't banned by default on any map in off-meta combat at all. There isn't a single map, I'm not even exaggerating. The English might be the only Civ that isn't banned on any maps in the map pool. So in theory, Capoch, maybe he just dominates this, right? Maybe he just plays the English, and then maybe he just plays it again. But you know what? If he's going to feel comfortable, he's going to have to beat some of Bee's best, because Bee is going to be manning the Roost. Not only his own country, but more importantly, it feels like it is home for this lad. This is the guy that led the way into the board meta we went. And who was our innovator? Who was our Columbus exploring the unknown? It was definitely Bee. Bee even educating a lot of other high-level players on the ladders that would then go on to mimic or innovate it themselves. But it did begin here. And for him, it evolved in something a lot more greedy, a lot more kind of atypical of Bee, or traditionally what Bee was about, with that later timing in games, because he would go for the secondary TC. He would float a lot of additional economy, and by the time he realized he'd done it, it was all too late. He'd already have extracted too much value off the map. Now, he was nerfed with the patch, because this lad was hard grinding King of the Hill on the old version, where he was doing the Roost regularly. New map, maybe a little bit less desirable for his TC build, but here on Dry Arabia, there is a lot of potential for this. The boars, for a start, are situated in a reasonable location on one of them. This one down here is a lot less desirable, but in theory, Bee could use it if he wants to go for the TC expansion. Meanwhile, this northern one, it's prime territory, right? You've got small tree lines here and here, which you can use with a hunting cabin, and it's next to a sacred site. So establishing Wooded Fortress control here now will serve a purpose later on in the game. Meanwhile, Capoch doesn't even think about going for the slower tech up. Something we have actually seen out of a lot of English players is the Dark Age wheelbarrow with the initial farms put down and then a few later around 5 minutes. Instead, he chooses to rush up as quickly as possible. An ambitious choice as well, because I've got to say, it's very hard to beat the Roost to the punchline with their bounties, right? Their bounties actually inflate their economy a lot, and it allows them to rush towards a feudal timing as quickly as almost any other Civ in the game. And with Bee having 5 people on this, he will match the exact time for Capoch. And that's when it gets concerning, because if your plan is to only push Lombos, I've got bad news, Capucci. This is not a favorable situation for you anymore. The Roost builds have changed. Now with a heavier reliance on wood and an understanding that that is where the economical benefits lie, this Civ is able to inflate its military production lines a lot quicker than most other Civs. Here we go. So 6 people pulled over. Bee, I think this is going to be the boar pull. The way you just shifted villages like that, it seems to me that the plan is to get initial wood income on one drop-off so that he can actually afford the Wooded Fortress, and then move out onto the boar over here. We'll have to see, though. This would be a lot later than the usual timing. Like, Bee is almost always running at this point in the game. But we'll have to see. It just might be that he sticks on the wood. In theory, going for the play onto the boar, it is a very healthy influx of food, but it might leave you a little bit susceptible to Lombo raids. So maybe that's the bigger concern in Bee's mind. If he keeps his base condensed, Capoch can't pick him apart at 2 different locations. And in fairness, those 2 locations are easily accessible, right? Like, you could see a situation which Capoch, with early Lombos, could rush over here, plop down an outpost between the boar and the TC, and then raid back and forth between the 2 lines. Interesting enough, like, scouts are shifting around for the moment. With 5 scouts out, is Bee considering going for pro scouts? Up to 6 now. And the stable drop as well. in theory, this very easily could end up being a Pro Scouts play. He has the nearby carcasses, which he could drag underneath his TC, which is very important because remember the range of the Lombos can exploit your base. And then also he has secondary to the south. And if there's something the English aren't very good at doing, it's denying Pro Scouts plays, just because of how slow their Lombos are. They, in theory, could if they split their Lombos up into 2 groups, but that leaves you a lot weaker, right? That means that you're essentially saying, yeah, you only need half the amount of troops to counter this clump because they're on the other side of your base. We'll see. I think the plan, like, yeah, it looks like he's trying to set up for a ball play. But the problem is Capoch is really on point with what he's doing here. Remember that he went for 2 scouts to deny a lot of bounty away from B. And now, more importantly, he's using those 2 scouts to identify where B's going to go. He understands his play. He understands exactly what it requires. And now B, he's got kind of these off-ramps from the highway, right? He had the off-ramp at the 4.5 minute mark. He's going to have another off-ramp at about 6.5. And then the final one for ball play feels like it's about 8 to 8.5. But in this matchup, I don't even think that's viable. I don't think you can wait until 8 minutes to go for ball if you're up against the English. And right now, that English is going to pressure. You can see the horsemen being produced in the meantime by B. Scouts do go for the ball anyway. With this many, they will be able to annihilate it. This is actually a beautiful thing, by the way. Something to note here, Scouts got buffed in a lot of ways. We've already seen how they're broken with harassing villages with their increased attack speed, but also against the boars. I'll explain why in a second, because at the moment, there is a notable fight going on as Lombos are trying to reach in and snipe out the villages. Horsemen are going to be sacrificed to the spears. Good trade initially for Capoch. Will be forced away now by the Wood Fortress, though. So back to the point of this boar, right? The boar, if you have a look at its stats, it had 4 melee and missile resistance, which meant the old scout was only doing 1 damage. Well, the new scout does half the damage. It used to be 4, now it's 2, but their attack speed has been doubled. And remember that damage can only be reduced to 1 minimum, which means that you've actually doubled your effective DPS against boars as scouts, which is why with this many scouts, he was able to get paid, right? He went out, he sniped the boar, and now with the pro scouts coming through, he's going to shift back towards his base. And you know what the big beauty is? It might be hard for Capoch to deny him quick enough. Horsemen force him away, reinforcements shifting across, but the first 2 carcasses are definitely going to get through. And you can see B, he's smart about this. He's actually going to shift away to the west side. And this is where Capoch does need to be a little bit careful. When you're playing as the English with a static force like this, if you go too far out your way, away from your reinforcement point, that does offer up an opportunity for B to then raid your trickling of troops. And that's exactly why he backs up. TC as well is problematic. Actually, the range on this would have frustrated him a lot. And B, he's hitting his timings now. We talked about this, right? Like the boar, you go for it early or you don't at all. And pro scouts, it can backfire. I will note that to you guys, that there is a very big issue right now with sheep. We've already seen it sting players like Puppy Paw multiple times in Gold League Round 2. But if your villagers automatically shift from deer to sheep, they get stuck on sheep and they never actually drop off their food. And they just become idle workers that aren't even registered as idle. So, good start to this is B shifting his carcasses to the north side, so they shouldn't be intercepted by the sheep gatherers. And I think he's going to finish off the sheep before shifting across, just to ensure the bugs don't come back to bite him in the butt. And that's an important detail, by the way. Like, there's not many civs that can feel confident about going pro scout still. The Roost is definitely one of them. And I feel like he's making the right play in this matchup. But you can see how dangerous it is because that aforementioned bug. And that's why he cleans up all the sheep first before getting all those deer. And Capoch, he's definitely on the clock here. Oh, big mistake made. Small reinforcements are going to be found by many a horseman. And with those spears, they do decent damage. That's coming to an end quickly. You can see B with the transition to archers showing up. And Capoch starting to spread himself in. Problems begin to arise. This outpost does feel a little bit late. This was my concern, is that this wasn't here maybe a minute or 2 sooner. That means that B for the moment is still safe on his wood line, but he's going to need to solve this soon. Alternatively, you think of one thing, folks, that is, that's a pretty big wood line as well. Maybe you just don't care. Maybe you just switch across to the other side. Because you've already inflated your wood eco by 20%, so you can definitely afford to reproduce this effect on the other side of your base. And look at the amount of scouts coming into Yoink, and oh my god, no, Capoch! He went for the pocket eco! He is English, went on to the deer, and he went on with 8 villagers, which means some of them are going to be dying to horsemen. Spears rushing across, one of them's going to go down, second one target out, but can't finish it off. But the damage is done. Like, your villagers are going to mostly stay alive. But there's nothing here. This patch has nothing left to give. As Bee snatched everything and made off like a thief in the night. Oh, what a beaut. And now because he pulled all the spearmen back, look what happens on the front line. Bee, he can take reasonable trades here. Horsemen are in with their double damage. Archers are holding for the moment. Spears are starting to arrive, but the trades are good, right? The longbows cost more than the archers. And as we already highlighted, the Roosts do get more wood. So they can afford this heavy leverage upon the eco of wood. The English, not so much. In fact, that's why, if we look, right, you can see 20 on wood for Capoch, 23 for Bee. Now look at the income per minute. Much more than that 3-point differential, right? That's the power of the Roost. That's the power of the wooden fortress. Now he's looking to push that power. Rushes out. Remember, these scouts, a lot of torch damage, 13 in fact. The effective unit to try and burn down an outpost with only one villager and no arrow slits as well, because, well, remember, these units will heal over time. He'll shift away for the moment. Scouts heal back, almost loses one, but able to get out of there. Now the spearmen rushing in, but they need to be careful. The wooden fortress is problematic for them. It's frustrating as well, right? Like, imagine this situation if Capoch was able to get a scout here. If he looks over from the left side, he sees the entire wood line, he can pepper them from over that wood line. But that's what is good about the layout of Bee's base and his composition of forces. It's impossible to park a scout here. The horsemen will chase it away. The archers will catch you off guard very quickly. It's just a very uncomfortable state of the game for Capoch. While Bee continues to cruise up, like when we look at the eco count, yeah, they're neck and neck, but the military is the difference maker this building for Bee. And so many of these military units for Capoch are spears, which means that he's just getting traded out, right? He can't even turn and burn. He can't even look to exchange fire here. It's just not enough longbowmen. The critical mass of archers is being achieved, and Capoch, no switchover, no transition. Right now, he's trying to layer his economy, shifting into farms, but not actually increasing his production at all on the military front. And it means the military front is about to go into retreat. Everything's cleaned up, and I mean, this is the concerning point in the game. The English, if you lose control like this, you better have a backup plan. The issue, however, is when you look at the numbers of Capoch, there's no clear backup plan. Where are his new line of longbowmen? Where's his secondary TC, his castle age timing? None of it exists. It's all fake news. And that means that Bee can turn Capoch into yesterday's news very quickly now. And this scouts play, this has been a very effective choice. From the boar to the raiding onto the outpost, then of course, you know, the pro scouts itself. Like, he's found value out of this. It was questionable. A lot of people would have saw this at the opening and be like, why has Bee got 7 scouts? You never do this anymore. It's like 4 maximum. But he definitely got his value out of it in this game. And now with a switch up in the Knights, the aggression is about to stack up quickly. And Bee, well, he should be on his way towards Siege Engineering soon. He's going to finish off on the Bloomery first, and then you get Siege Engineering in prep for a push-in. But while all this is happening, Bee never slows down. He goes across to Capoch's base and steals the deer from out underneath his nose. Not that Capoch had actually chose to go on it. He already suffered enough when he went onto the northern deer line. Didn't want that to happen again. Outpost will hold him for the moment. He's now got 4 people on stone, but he's not doing anything with it. You need 1,000,001 outposts to stop this. So many horsemen rushing in here. Barely any spears to defend him. Archers moving in range to actually get the double damage up against them. 1 or 2 horsemen are going to fall, but that reveals the spear line, and that leaves Capoch vulnerable. And look where all of his eco is. He can't afford to give much more ground. Bee will jump back for the moment. Understands that he's overextended himself, but not for long, because tech up is there and ready, and this is the difference maker. This is the way that Bee scaled himself. He can instantly make this investment, and even after he trades in Capoch's base, he's still leading militarily. And you know what he done, folks? It's the high trade house, and look at the location of this. The straggler forest. He could have went a little bit deeper, but it would have been risky with longbows pushing out, so he takes a little bit of a safer choice. I say safe. He still ballsily put this at the front of his base. And now he's moving out for the wooden fortress as well, the staging point that he needs. I mean, Bee, he has options now, right? You could go into the horse archers. You could also shift into siege. It doesn't really matter, though. Like, every single choice available to him is good here. Capoch, he's not playing right now, it feels like. He's over here in his base. It almost feels like he's doing an introductory role to the English, and that's not because Capoch is a bad player, but that's because Bee has dominated him so effectively in this early mid game. There we go. So Wooden Fortress pulled back slightly as it was a little bit too close. Lombo shifting across. Bee won't make a move just yet. He should have the tech upgrades coming through soon. You can see he's already in his way with the veteran archers. No commitment on the horseman yet. And wow, Bee. Okay, this is what we call a Bee perspective move. Bee in this situation as Capoch would have built to the backside here. Capoch probably has no intent of doing this, but in Bee's mind, he wants to eliminate that option. He wants to create a literal wall that Capoch is going to be pushed up against. And Capoch, oh, does he think it's a proxy base? No, he's going to wrap round now. So he will see the villager before he can complete the wall. So lost Villy for nothing there for Bee. But Capoch's map is getting very small. I mean, vision-wise, he sees nothing. He's now playing that implied odds situation, right? Implied odds meaning where, because you don't know what your opponent has for sure, you have to extract information based on what they've done so far and what their civ historically does and what the player historically does. So now, Bee, like, he has so many options. Capoch, like, could he go horse archers? Is he going to go siege? Is he going to go horseman? Well, for the moment, he's going to go for a fight to throw away this army, and then that gets very confusing after that. When a fortress cannot be protected, Bee will have to back away. Capoch takes an initial good fight, but now the concern is, what is his opponent doing? What's the next layer? Because that's no way in hell is that was his entire force, right? There has to be something else behind it. We can see clearly Bee did go into the archers. Now, this investment would make sense to Capoch, but the issue that Capoch has is because his opponent already shows signs of horsemen and knights, he actually has to diversify his investment. He can't just do a full 100% build of Lombos. Instead, he has to go on these spears, and that leaves him weak on the Lombo count and allows Bee to outmass him quickly. March in, horsemen, knights riding through, reveals the villagers, forcing them to peel back to the south side. Archers now trading out. Very effectively, remember. Bonus health and more damage means that Capoch is no longer taking good trades one-on-one, and he's paying more for his unit compared to what Bee is. Horseman baiting the spearmen. Spearmen shifting across the knights. The knights are going to deny this villager from being able to build the outpost. And this is looking as done as the dodo right now. Even if you wipe this army, how the hell do you replace it as Capoch? I mean, and that's a big even if. Just a few knights and a few archers will clean up the remnant Lombos, and from there on out, you know what's coming. You can already see it. Capoch, he doesn't know about this wooden fortress, and by the time he sees it, it's going to be too late to do anything. It already looks like it's that way, because Bee, he's just looked dominant in the move up to Castle Age. He shuts out all potential. Capoch with this all-in attempt in feudal, it does not bear fruit, and thus it will only end in a victory for Bee as he takes the opening game here in the upper bracket. Oh, what a cruise mode game as well. Like, this was pretty trivial for Bee. It didn't really look problematic. It didn't look difficult. It was incredibly cut and dry. And, I mean, it felt like Capoch. The issue I see here is he was playing a very outdated build. It's hard to ever justify Lombo only. And if you're going into spears as well, you're playing to your opponent's advantage. I've talked about this on the live streams for EGC. I actually think the worst matchup for the English right now is the Roost. And the reasoning behind this is because on landlocked maps, your really strong play for the English right now that opened up with the changes is you actually have the potential to push your first man at arms out and across your opponent's gold line by 2 minutes the latest. And that can usually be quick enough to deny them gathering gold. And thus they won't be able to tech up the feudal. That limits their options insanely. It forces them to play a long Dark Age while you can then scale up. And all it costs you is an investment of 120 per man at arms, and 2 is usually good enough, maximum. The issue with this strategy against the Roost is it's not even on the table. The reason being is the Roost don't need to go on their gold. You may have noticed in that game. You've probably noticed it in plenty of Roost games. The only time that they go onto the gold vein is when they are up in feudal age and they transition into knights. Otherwise, they float their economy basically just on a combination of bounty system early on and then golden gate trades after that in feudal age. It means that this strategy is completely lost to you. So then, as the English, you don't have any great early game aggression. Playing into Lombos is predictable and also counted out by what the Roost do by default, which is amass archers at a much higher mass than you're capable of with Lombos, with the Lombos being more expensive and you having less wood. And that leaves, what? A Castle Age rush as the English? Once again, weak and susceptible to raids from the Roost, because the Roost are a feudal tempo aggressive Civ. Like, we have seen people boom with them instead, but they are very vicious in the feudal age right now. With that influx of extra wood, not only able to amass a big army quickly, but also able to afford the Rams to end your game at around the 15-minute marker. And that's why, like, I did not like this Civ choice. I felt like this Civ choice was Capoch putting himself in the corner, basically. He maybe should have anticipated the Roost was coming out. I'm not quite sure what he banned in that first game, but clearly that ban would have served him better elsewhere. It is time for game number 2. But you'd be forgiven for mistaking it for game number 1 on the loading screen, because the only difference here is that it's on Altai. That's right. I highlighted it at the beginning of this series, the possibility for it. The fact that you can actually keep picking the same civs. And after what Bee saw in game 1, he was happy to allow the English to go unbanned. And he was even happier when he noticed that Capoch had not adjusted. He didn't switch it up. He didn't ban Bee from getting this potent Civ. And it's going to be here on Altai, where I think the Roost have a lot of value again. Someone I was highlighting at the end of that first game, like, this matchup is heavily in favor of the Roost now, with the changes to the builds and also the kind of quirky openings the English can make, all being countered by the way the Roost play. It doesn't leave any early aggressive options, really, for the English right now. Unless someone switches it up, unless someone creates a new build, maybe Horseman could be the way to go, right? The Mr. build, return to that. Because if you're going for the Lombos, or you're going for the Man-at-Arms play early on, you're not going to find any value against the Roost due to the way the early game eco plays and the unit choices they make. So, if I want to see Capoch come back into this, which I would love to. I'd love to see this turn into a competitive series, because game 1 did not look that way. It begins by changing the way you see this Civ. First things first, Capoch, did he go for the second scout? Is he going to get the second scout? It looks like he might not. This is troublesome. If you don't go for the second scout, you're probably forfeiting 270 plus, I'd say, to be. Because you know he's going to produce scouts kind of en masse. He won't go pro scouts in this situation, or he shouldn't, because remember, one of the issues with doing pro scouts on Altai is one deer stack is so close to each player's base that they're already removed the equation, right? Like, if you're the player going pro scouts, you already have the deer right here, and then your opponent has some right next to his base that you're probably never going to yoink. So in terms of return value, there's only 2 stacks of deer really you need pro scouts for, which means it's just not a viable play. What could be a viable play is a play into the boar, but it would put Bee out of position. He wouldn't be able to leverage this as a staging point to hold the center of the map and maybe set up a proxy base. And also, due to where these boars are situated, there's a heavy lack of resources around them, which means that Bee's secondary TC play on the boar might also be a lot less desirable. And Capoch, oh my god, he's going off the scout. And I don't think he denied any of that. No, he didn't deny a single piece. Look at the numbers right now. That is 315. And you can see what he's resorted to. Like we said, he hasn't built a second scout. So what does Capoch do? He heads out with the villager to snipe all this deer to stop extra equity going in the pocket of Bee. But the damage is kind of already done. He's at 320. Now, 420 would be nicer to blaze it, but outside that, he's fine with this. He even trades out the scout to get an additional wolf. Arguable whether it was fully worth it, but value found elsewhere, really, right? Like, Bee in this situation, he still has 3 scouts out in the field. They'll probably return a few additional sheep, and then he's going to get, what, like 350, 360 bounty? In fact, clubbing 1 sheep down will give him enough that if he goes after both the boars, he will unlock the tier 3 bounty system. Which, you know, the benefits of extra gathering and generation on hunting cameras aside, is still a phenomenal influx of additional gold. Like, actually, if you think about it very simply, if you crack the tier 3 bounty, you almost have collected enough gold past it, like just magically fabricated out of nowhere, right, as additional economy to afford Castle Age, right? Obviously, Feudal Age is going to take 200 out of that, so realistically, no. But in terms of like the individual cost, right, it's you being in a situation where you can gather a third of what's required to get Castle Age. That is an insane boost into your eco, especially considering it's achievable at 5 minutes. as we saw with B do in the previous game, right? When he went in a mass scouts, he moved out, he sniped out both wars with just scouts alone, and he had all the pocket money, right? He could go and buy all the sweeties he wanted. Meanwhile, Capoch, you know, he keeps going to his parents. He's like, "Mummy, can I please get a Twix? Can we please get some candy this year?" I'm sorry, my dear. It's a little bit too tough right now. I mean, you know, coal mining isn't paying what it used to. You're just going to have to make do with eating tree bark, I'm afraid. Capoch's head tilts. What? Well, I guess it does fit. The English do like their wood. I'm not even going to look across at chat after I made that statement. But everything they want to do relies upon wood. Especially considering Capoch has not adapted the build really at all so far. It is once again going to be the Lombos coming out, but there's still a redeeming arc here. And I'm not just talking about the redemption arc where if he continues the standardized build he's going to find himself. It's the fact that if he stops between 3 and 5 Lombos, that's not too heavy an investment. It allows you to go and poke and prod at your opponent and force them to react. Then you can fall back and do something else. But as it stands right now, if he just continues to produce Lombos, B is already getting the solution out. It's basically the same opening on both sides, minus the pro scouts, but in terms of the fact that we've got horsemen on one and archers on the other. And what's Capoch's play here? Go spears? Well, if you go spears, you know where this ends. This ends in archery range spam from B again. It really would be a shame to see Capoch kind of go out with that stubborn approach, shall we say, to the meta right now, because, you know, this guy is a talented player. I mean, I've cast him from day one, and you can see his commitment to the game. You can see how well he's improved his craft, but that this build is going to have some sort of adaptation. I like that he's at least walling himself in. And my hopes is that now he stops on the Lombos, possibly targets out a secondary TC, or possibly scaling up into Castle. Rushing Castle might be problematic, though, just because of how far ahead of you B already is. Still no wooden fortress, though, so B has slowed himself down a little bit here. And notice that B has chosen to just run out from this hunting cabin. A lot of people are going to be right now just losing hair, going, "Oh, this is really inefficient. What the hell's happening?" It's because of the changes with the patch. Remember that now you actually carry a lot more food on game. When I say game, I mean boars and deers, right? So when you collect from these, you can see he can actually go all the way up to 30 due to the fact that he did get wheelbarrow, which is a phenomenal amount to be carrying, right? It actually alleviates a lot of the problem because before, this play was so inefficient because you were getting, say, half the value. If you think about what you're getting right now, like, think about it this way. You used to get 10 by default and then a little bit more of wheelbarrow. Now you're getting well over double, which means that this idle time of running in between has been heavily negated. It's still slightly suboptimal, but it makes it more efficient for the Roost because this Civ doesn't want to build additional hunting cabins, especially next to an existing one, because they cost 100 wood each. Beat. We'll be able to eliminate the scout at this rate, actually. I don't think the scout's going to be able to heal enough. One more poke. Needs to follow through with another one, but he decides to go against it. Needed 2 stabs and realizes there's too many longbowmen around here. That would have been a big deal as well, because Capoch only has 1 scout, remember. So stripping his vision is a really big deal at this stage. It would allow you to kind of pick him apart, get in position for a raid or a ram rush, and he probably wouldn't see it coming. And here we go. The choice has been made. B. He goes for the secondary TC, and this is the 1 scout worry. To bring it back to that, now that Capoch only has 1 scout in the field and it's heavily injured, he's not going to send it across to B's base. And it means that he's not going to get this information for probably the next 2 minutes at least. At which stage, B would have begun to find serious value out of the secondary town center, and anything that Capoch does is going to feel like catch-up. And I don't mean the wonderful condiment you put on your burgers. No. Because the only thing that will be eaten at this rate will end up being Capoch. The longbow count continues to increase. I mean, B, he knows about this as well. Now, one thing he does need to be careful about, going this hard into the eco-booming, he needs to make sure he sustains food, which is why he's going to quickly look to move across onto this new deer line, which is right next to the berries as well. In fact, B will likely drop the hunting cabin next to the berries, just because of what we just highlighted around gathering on the deer, right? You carry so much food back that it's actually more optimal to just slap down 1 hunting cabin right here next to the berries first, and then accept that a few of these deer carcasses are going to be further off. Meanwhile, Capoch has made his choice. He did make a heavy investment. 13 Lombos is a sizable quantity. Remember, folks, these cost 90 resources each. So, yeah, this is almost the... This is like, what, 2/3 of the cost of Castle Age? Just think how quickly Capoch could have had it if he didn't go for a single military. No, I'm not going to advise that. That would have been maybe poor play. But King's Pass now up. Or at least on the way up. And I think B did see that. And B, he's raiding him with a few horsemen here. Remember, there's only Lombo Musket Capoch. He didn't transition. And this means it's going to sting him. And this timing actually is going to sting him even further. He can't stop building this now. He's heavily invested. The Lombos might be able to protect him. As the horsemen peel off 1 or 2 onto the villagers, it means there's not enough horsemen here to get through the Lombos remaining. But if B continues to push, if he had more troops coming, he could probably deny this. But it looks like Capoch, at the end of the day, should be able to get the King's Palace up, but it is going to cost him. Another villager tries to peel him back. It's going to go down. And this might be the moment. Yeah, he's just going to switch around. He realized he gave the attack speed over. So instead, he's just going to trade villagers out. He's slowing down the timing. This is really well played by B. He'll shift out the other side with 2 horsemen at the end. But he did delay it slightly, right? He killed 1 or 2 villagers. He slowed down the castle a little bit. And also, he depleted the forces of Capoch, right? Brought him down from 13 Lombos to 7. And I believe it was 5 horsemen invested. So overall, it ends up being economically a good exchange for B. And it pads him for a little bit. It pads him long enough that B is going to be not even a minute behind his opponent because he's already ready to tech up with the high trade house. Oh, and this lad, he loves the high trade house. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw him build an Abbey of Trinity. In fact, the only time I tend to see B build Abbey of Trinity is when he's up against other Roost players. And you can understand why in that situation, right? It turns into a race. And, well, because you're both building the fastest moving Monk, at least out to the relic, it makes sense that, like, the smallest of leads makes the difference. So you want to make sure you're able to get your first Monk out and collecting a relic before your opponent even spawns his. But in any other matchup, it's always high trade house now. He likes the guaranteed gold. He likes dragging it late, and he understands that he still has the option to go for these relics. It's a little bit more pricey of an investment into the warrior monks, but if he does still get those relics, on top of having the high trade house, he just has more infinite gold than his opponent. And when I put it like that, I know a lot of people are going to be saying, well, that's quite the gamble, KP. There's no guarantee of what you just stated that he gets it that way. You know, that's like having your cake and eating it. But as we have presented on the ETC stream before, sometimes you do just get to have your cake and eat it. Sometimes your dad owns a bakery. And you know what? I think Bees might, because it looks like he's ready to get that bread. Maybe get that dub. Because he's walled himself in. He's playing safe for the moment. The tech lead is now gone for Capoch. And the eco lead is still with B, right? Because he built this TC first. They're both just 2 TC now. But it's a 5 eco lead for B. On top of that, if he starts pushing hard into the wood, he's getting additional value there as well. Not to mention the fact that he is onto the deer, which are gathering at an easily comparable rate to the farms, which Capoch is in the process of switching over to. And there we go. This is what I was highlighting about B. He doesn't care. It's going to be a bigger initial investment, right? He paid 200 for the monastery. He's going to have to pay double what you would if you had Abbey of Trinity for the warrior monks. But the other beauty of this strategy is because you're up against the English, and also because you ward him on this side, it's unlikely the English are going to match this play. For a start, they want to push as many longbowmen to replace what they lost at the beginning of this, and they need to build new military infrastructure, so that's a little bit pricey then going to monastery as well. On top of that, it's the fact that you won't necessarily get intercepted, because if your plan now is with your monks to play the outskirts of the map where you can easily collect free, there's no way in hell Capoch is ever going there, due to the fact not only that you've walled them on each side, but also because with such a static force, it would completely displace him. Oh my god, so well played. It's actually so well played what he's done here. So he has the full eyes on whatever is coming his way. And Capoch is not going to be happy upon arrival with this. He hasn't got enough troops to dive yet. He hasn't got siege engineering. And all the while, he knows what B's doing. B's building up behind this wall. And B is going to be building up into the siege workshop, which is the perfect answer to everything that Capoch is currently pushing. He has no springalds, he has no cavalry, and thus has no way to deal with siege. I mean, this is just a beautiful class on how to use your scouting vision. It looks like he did get denied in the front, but he fed plenty of info. Also, now the frustration, if Capoch watches his back, is he feels confident after that, right? I've taken out his vision. He doesn't know what I'm about to do. He does. He's sitting in a cell forest here as well. And you can't see it because remember, town centers, they don't give tower vision, right? They're not going to see as deep into these tree lines. And it means that you're completely blind to the fact that B isn't. And it means he's now going to see you switch over to Siege Workshop. And because he's ahead of you, he can get the first Mangonel and then instantly switch from the Springholds and keep the siege leverage over Capoch. I just love how these small details make the difference. I mean, you know, some people, they might sit there and they go, I don't know why you're getting so excited. It's just like, it's just vision. Whoop-de-doo. Like, sometimes vision really can be exciting, folks. Because in a game about counters, in a game of transitions, good vision wins games. With no villager here, Capoch, what is the play? Other than get hit by a Mangonel. It's almost like impatience is setting in. He's like, I need to be in. I know I need to be in soon. Like, the longer we wait, the worse this gets for me. He doesn't even know about the secondary TC, so maybe he doesn't think this way. Maybe right now, Capoch's mindset is, I'm just going to threaten, keep him in. I know that I'm out scaling him because I went for a second TC. But surely he knows better than this. Like, surely he understands the level of aggression that's been thrown his way by B. There had to have been an alternative play. There's no way with the power spike timing around 10 minutes the Roots have that he only threw 5 horsemen into the mixer. Especially seeing that Capoch was taking up. So I think B is, obvious enough in a lot of ways to players now with his greed that Capoch has to suspect that it's a secondary TC at the back. Villagers? I don't even think they know what they're doing there right now. Oh, it's more walls. He isn't even through the first one yet. He's at least getting an outpost on the front line, but look at this double Maggon now. So we said that B did have the heads-up info to now build Springholds. Do you want to know why he hasn't, though? Because he sees everything. He's still around the back here with the scouting vision. And now in with the Knights as well. He sees what Capoch is up to. He shifted onto the stone. He wanted it for the upgrades onto the outpost, but also the possibility of a keep. That's why his Knights are here, to frustrate and deny that. And that means that Capoch is still playing no siege. Like, it's perplexing at this stage. I'm trying to rack my brain over what the win condition is in Capoch's mind, what he thinks wins in this game. If he's planning to wait another 5-10 minutes, I think I've got bad news for you, buddy. Like, yes, the wood line is depleting for B, but if you have a look across to the south side, he has a secondary line in his back corner. Now, you can say this is an outrage because the English didn't get the same. They at least got a giant stealth forest to work with. But the fact is that Capoch, he never spotted this. I don't think he ever fully saw this. He maybe glanced at it, but he never went deep in the corner, so he maybe only saw 2 or 3 trees. And I think that's why he stationed himself like this. And now he's going to go in. And now he's going to get the bad news. He sees the secondary TC. He doesn't know how long it's been here. Mangonel shots coming in. Heavy hits. First wave is about to be obliterated. And Capoch, he realizes it's too late. He has to run and hide. And it is too late. Mangonel's going to inflict heavy casualties upon Capoch. Not like this. This was not the way. I mean, this is the way to heaven. Possibly to hell. As Capoch takes heavy casualties for nothing. And all the while, look what B was doing in his base. Oh my god, they're 20 eco apart now. Now, for reference, they were about 5 eco difference when they both got 2 TCs stabilized. But these Knights have been massacring Capoch. And while that was happening, his aggressive army done nothing. The only person this army was aggressive to was itself. And you can tell by their health bars that that's the case. And now the Mangonels from B. And this is all formed by this scout. This scout right here from B is MVP. MVP. Because he told him about everything. B has been able to be ultra greedy, switches into Knights because no spears are being pushed by Capoch, goes for quadruple Mangonel because his opponent never built a single damn Springhold. In fact, this Siege Workshop has been worthless. What is it here for? Capoch built a Siege Workshop for 300 wood that has done nothing. And more importantly, B understood perfectly that it had done nothing. And now it feels like Capoch can do nothing here because he just doesn't have the counter to the Magos. Now, will this being this final game in the series for him, if he loses this, he's not just going to wave the white flag, but I think he knows it's close. He has no angle of approach right now against the Mangonel fire. And that, what the hell was that range? 2 more, 3 more Mangonels. I mean, Bee, he's free to do whatever he wants now. The Mangonels don't even need protection because they will obliterate any Russian man-at-arms. And they are going to obliterate Capoch's composition here. Longbow's target out, only a few MAA on top of him, but the Mangonels cover him. Damage is not good enough. Capoch's front line is going to completely fold here. And the back line is too squishy to hang around. Knight's pushing him away, and now you go for spears. Of course. You greedy bugger. You'd wait all this time to switch over into the solution to Knights. He wanted to see a reaction out of Bee. He wanted to see a reason. I think Bee gave him many things to think about in this game, but amidst it isn't a reason for getting back into this, right? There's plenty of reasons as to why you lost this as Capoch. But it's very hard to see a way back in from now as the front line just gets obliterated. A brave lad there. Spearman sees all of his friends die, still charges towards 1,000,001 Mangonels. And now with Springles in the mix, with the Siege Workshop down, I mean, Capoch has nothing left. You know, we said we wanted to see him switch it up in game number 2, and to his credit, he did do that. But so did Bee. And Bee's switch up just looks a hell of a lot better here. Capoch, he'll rush in now, but the Magos will just wipe him out, and there's just no way to replace the troops. GG is going to be called. Capoch will be knocked down into the redemption bracket. Bee continues on in the upper. Ay, ay, ay. What a play out, Bee. This is really well played by him. The understanding of when he could be greedy, understanding that his opponent wasn't actually going to leverage feudal timings, allowed him to fall back where a lot of players would have wasted an additional 2 minutes pushing units and they would have been punished for it, right? Like, there's an eco advantage potentially coming through for the English. But Bee understands when he can be greedy. In fact, if you ask high-level players their opinion of Bee, Bee is a player that if you give him the opportunity to be greedy, he will take it. Like, he will actually bite your hand off. And that's the issue of what Capoch done here. A few longbowmen, no spearmen in the mixer, made it too obvious that Capoch wasn't going to hang around in feudal. If he had spearmen in the mixer when those horsemen rode in, and obviously if the King's Palace wasn't being built right underneath his nose, there's a situation where Bee probably doubles down on feudal, worried that his opponent is going to rush him. But because his opponent only has 13 longbows, this tells him everything he needs to know. At high level, players, they're smart. They're not going to rush 13 longbows out without any protection, especially when the possibility of horsemen exists in that game. And that's exactly why Bee falls back and just booms up himself at that stage with the TC, with the castle age timing, because he understands that Capoch has unleashed his greed by trying to be greedy himself. And as a result, Bee takes a very easy 2-0 win. And by the way, this stuff about Siege needs to do this, Siege needs to do that, like, this isn't even a case of Siege OP, ree! This was just Bee playing incredibly well. Capoch had the option to go into Siege. He actually built the Siege Workshop and literally never used it. He didn't eliminate vision correctly. He got punished by being outplayed multiple times in this game by Bee on an economical level, on a vision level, and then on military level. And that is why Bee took him down to it.